Ciaran Browne, is Assistant Professor at Trinity College in Dublin. He's joining us from Belfast in Northern Ireland. Dr. Browne, sorry, it's good to have you with us. Just tell us, how do these barriers work in effect against Palestinians?
Well, thanks again for having me on. These walls, or the wall, as your reporter has pointed out already, they cut right through the occupied West Bank, and they divide up Palestinian villages. They segregate Palestinians from accessing land. They control every aspect and facet of Palestinian movement in and around the area. They are huge structures that are heavily securitized as well. In these walls, you have checkpoints that control Palestinian movement in and out of the walls. This is almost 700 kilometers long. I mean, this is a significant piece of infrastructure that has had an absolutely devastating and catastrophic impact upon Palestinian life. So they really do control all aspects of Palestinian life.
And of course, as we mentioned in the package, and as you will well know, they are illegal under international law. So it begs the question how they've been allowed to stand for so long.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. It was in July 2004 that the International Court of Justice, by 14 votes to 1, declared that the wall was illegal. They noted that it constitutes de facto annexation. It wasn't justified on security grounds, despite Israeli consternation, and it also violated human rights law. Now, the reason why this wall has been allowed to continue is, in many ways, the lack of enforceability of the International Court of Justice decision, and also the fact that, in many ways, international law just hasn't been rigorously enforced in the region. This is not the only case that international law hasn't been enforced. I mean, we see that with regards to other crimes that are taking place in the occupied West Bank against the Palestinians. So it's a lack of enforceability, really.
And Dr. Browne, what's their future then? And of course, being in Northern Ireland, you will be aware of peace barriers. I believe they were called in Belfast. We've seen the Berlin Wall, of course, come down after some 23 years. What's the future of these walls, do you think, in the occupied territories?
Well, yeah, I mean, growing up in Belfast, we're well used to the peace walls, oxymoronically named, obviously. These walls, unless there is a sustained and realistic move towards shifting the political reality on the ground, it doesn't seem like these walls are going anywhere unless the international community looks to enforce the International Court of Justice decision and put pressure on the Israeli government to strip back and to stop building these walls. These aren't going anywhere. And in fact, the wall has gotten bigger and more developed, and it has grown exponentially. So it doesn't look like a positive outcome is on the horizon.
And just finally then, Dr. Browne, the last time you and I spoke, we were talking about the sort of the future of Palestinian and statehood. We've seen this new Israeli government, I think, in power now for maybe a month, 6 weeks. What are your assessments of what you've seen? I mean, we saw that law get struck down, paradoxically somehow, by Bibi Netanyahu striking it down. What are your feelings about what we're going to see from this new Israeli coalition, do you think, for Palestinians?
I mean, I would like to be really optimistic and say that there's going to be a change, but I mean, Palestinians are well used to Israeli governments not providing any sort of olive branch or providing any sort of realistic ways of changing the reality on the ground. I mean, this new Israeli government is arguably even more right-wing than the previous Netanyahu government. The current Israeli prime minister is very aligned to the settler movement as well. So, I mean, Palestinians are well aware that they're not going to see much by way of change from this government at all.
Perhaps not. Okay, Brendan, Ciaran Browne, always good to have your analysis. Thanks for being with us.